Kengo Kuma, Doctor Honoris Causa, the University of Architecture and Urban Planning, Ion Mincu in Bucharest. So Kengo Kuma here, he says, born 1954, but he was born, I had my sources saying January 1st, is a Japanese architect and professor in the Department of Architecture, Graduate School of Engineering at the University of Tokyo. Frequently compared to contemporaries Shigeru Ban and Kazuyo Sejima, Kuma is also noted for his prolific writings. He's the designer of the Japan National Stadium in Tokyo, which was built for the 2020 Summer Olympics. And I did mention that there were troubles with the stadium because the competition was won by Zaha Hadid, but the commission was given to Kengo Kuma, and apparently, Zaha Hadid architects claim that he inspired himself a lot from their project. A murky affair. Kuma was born in Kanagawa and attended this junior and senior high school. After graduating in architecture from the University of Tokyo in 1979, he worked for a time at Nihon Sekei and Toda Corporation. He then moved to New York City for further studies at Columbia University as a visiting researcher from 1985 to 1986. In 1987, Kuma founded a spatial design studio. And in 1990, he established his own firm, Kengo Kuma and Associates. He has taught at Columbia University, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and Keio University, where in 2008, Kuma was awarded a PhD degree in architecture. As a professor at the Graduate School of Architecture at the University of Tokyo, he runs a variety of research projects concerning architecture, urbanism, and design within his laboratory, Kuma Lab. Kengo Kuma and Associates employs over 300 architects in Tokyo, in Beijing and Shanghai, in China and Paris, designing projects of diverse type and scales throughout the world. Kuma's stated goal is to recover the tradition of Japanese buildings and to reinterpret these traditions for the 21st century. In 1997, he won the Architectural Institute of Japan Award, and in 2009 was made an officier de l'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres in France. Kuma lectures extensively and is the author of numerous books and articles discussing and criticizing approaches in contemporary architecture. His seminal text, Anti-Object, The Dissolution and Disintegration of Architecture, written in 2008, calls for an architecture of relations, respecting its surroundings instead of dominating them. Kuma's projects maintain a keen interest in the manipulation of light with nature through materiality. It all sounds very, very, very good. But, you know, as an Italian critic told me, Luigi Prestinenza, he said, Dan, never trust what an architect says. He says one thing and then he does another. I hope I have here an early project by Kengo Kuma from 1992, I think, a showroom for a car manufacturer, Toyota or Mazda, which would leave you totally perplexed and totally in contradiction with what is stated here. But let's see. I hope I have it here. Otherwise, again, I will suffer again. This is the man. Kengo Kuma, another picture, and another picture. I mean, you know, if we are to judge based on the lips of someone, we could say that he has an appreciable level of sensuality, but there is also something else about him. I mean, if I look at this picture, I don't know very well what to say. I'm intrigued by his shoes, that's for sure. I have seen him after he was awarded the commission for the Olympic Stadium in Tokyo, being dressed very, very, casually to say the least, as if he had a leather jacket he bought at Salvation Army or some kind of second-hand store. Otherwise, again, he's a man of immense success, and almost as big as that big shoe, above on the left corner. I mean, that the size of that shoe is probably close to 50 or something. Maybe it's just for decoration. I don't know. Anyway, otherwise he kind of looks like this. I mean, I look at the edge of this black whatever. Is it a t-shirt on top of the red one? Is something wrong here? Or maybe it's some kind of a graphic design on the red. He doesn't seem to care too much about these things, and in a way it's good if he doesn't. But let's see. I chose this picture for the invitation today. I find it intriguing and rather disturbing that this man, who seems to be so interested in nature, he actually cuts down so many trees because he uses so much wood. In fact, when he was in Bucharest to receive his Doctor Honoris Causa title, I did ask him about this, and I didn't receive a convincing answer. If you love nature so much, why do you cut down so many trees in order to geometrize them and transform them into an architecture which is pleasing? It's true, but what we look at here represents cut down trees. That's what we look at. And I don't think we can afford to continue to cut down trees. Rather than offering a very banal response to conditions of the Japanese metropolis of high density, young Japanese architects are very experimental and therefore very influenced by the way these architects were successful in maintaining a very experimental and avant-garde practice, he said, Kuma. A Japanese constellation, Toyo Ito, Sana, meaning Kazuyo Seijima and beyond, is on the show at New York's Museum of Modern Art in New York until July 2016. Indeed, these Japanese architects are formidable. And they are formidable exactly because they are avant-garde, exactly because they experiment a lot, but they represent a small segment of the construction industry. Let's not imagine that the whole of Japan is filled with, avant-garde buildings or experimental buildings. No, they still represent a small segment, but it's very good that they exist. And I wonder if why this doesn't happen in other countries, like ours, for example. Wood, and wood again. Shanghai Tower. Let's see, Shanghai Tower. It's true, he is skillful at problematizing, certain assumptions that, when you think of a tower, you don't think of this kind of treatment of the skin of the building. He brings in a level of fluidity, of a certain unexpectedness because of the aleatory play of light and shadow. So he knows how to be different without being perhaps alarmingly so. I think he also understands the role of ornament, because we look at these attached facade elements. They are mainly of an ornamental nature. They are not structural. So this is also something that we should take notice of, that his buildings are not only structured. Asakusa Culture and Tourist Center. It's not bad, and the fact that he differentiates between various floors, of course, this requires a certain difficulty in obtaining the final building, in realizing it, in building it. But what is the alternative? To be like this building here? I don't think so. I mean, you know, plus he warms up the building with the wood that he's so fond of by cutting it down from the trees, um, from the forest. But then how do we build? You know, with concrete we cannot build because it is polluting. With wood we cannot build because it means cutting down trees. We are really at a crossroads in a way. If we continue to build, how can we build? What I like about this tower is that, I mean, look, there are interesting things going on here. Who would build a tower, you know, an impressive stature on top of a building with a sloping roof? Because this is what we have here. If we remove the building from this level up, we get a low shed, you know, with a sloping roof. And he builds on top of such a building. I mean, this would not be even acceptable in most architecture schools, and he builds it. So he's obviously capable of negotiating with reality, even in difficult circumstances, and he's taking risks. But it's good to take risks because otherwise what happens? Not much. That's why I keep telling every student, take risks, express yourself, express what you stand for. Think, feel, be yourself with all the risks. Otherwise, we just build very similar buildings until the end of the world. And that's not good. What is this? A museum research center? Wood, and wood again. I confess, I am tired of so much, you know, framed wood or frame-like wood, because essentially this is a Cartesian system that he builds with these pieces of wood. Yes, he does it exquisitely. I have another example, a beautiful, actually, a Starbucks cafe, also done with you know, a lot of pieces of wood, like here. He claimed, and I understand why, that he wants to lighten up the structure by diffusing the light through these curtains of you know, thin elements of architecture. You know, in this case, these pieces of wood. You know, a friend of mine with a malicious state of mind said that he uses this is an architecture of matches. Well, it's more, of course, but I can see why he thought so. He plays with many matches, you know, not in the sense of you know, generating fire, but it's this fragmentation of, because if you remove the wooden thing, what do you get? Walls, like, you know, common walls as they can be seen everywhere, but he covers them with these three-dimensional tapestry of thin elements of wood, and it does appear more sensitive and more interesting. But it's just too much wood. I mean, when I'm thinking of it, you know, he has no problem. It's true that Japan has lots of forests. It's true. But we need badly forests, and we need badly ozone and oxygen, and we need badly wood. We need badly trees. But this man is obsessed by wood, and again, he has no guilt. And I asked him about the guilt of cutting down trees in order to build these, you know, grid-like things in wood, and I forgot what he answered, but I remember I was not very impressed. Because he has the feeling that, I think he said something of the sort, that even cut down the tree, even the wood that is processed in order to be used in his buildings, it's still wood and is still somehow alive. Well, I don't know. I don't know how much alive the poor wood feels like when it is processed in this way by this famous Japanese architect. Cafe Kuroni Toyama, you see here again, you know, wood and wood again. If we remove the wood, what do we get? A banal building, a all glass. But with this, fortunately, with this wood, it becomes interesting. But with what price? Cut down trees. That's the price. Another building, he's skillful, no doubt. He's a skillful architect. But I'm afraid I don't have that horrid, absolutely horrid building he built in 1992. Please, if I don't show it here, please go to Google Images, type in Kengo Kuma, showroom 1992, I think for Mazda, if not Mazda, Toyota. You will not believe your eyes. That's all I can say. Folk Museum for the China Academy of Art. I like this building. It's labyrinthical, you know. It's a woven building. You know, almost a textile work. It's a fabric, like an urban fabric, but it's in nature. But geometry is still used, and it's used convincingly. It's true. Now, of all 300 people he employs in his offices, I'm sure he has some excellent designers, and under his guidance, they do good work. It must be very pleasant now to do creative architecture. In essence, to do whatever you want to do. And the Chinese build whatever you want to do. They build everything. That's what I read. The Chinese build everything. They will never say no to anything. This dynamic succession of images is automated. It's not because of me. It just happens. So please bear with it. It's in a way interesting. Is the machine self-fueled? That's all. It does it by itself. But we can see this curtain, architectural curtain, like in that image, you know, where you see the, the impressionistic atmosphere within the building because of this thing, which again, it's ornamental. Now, if we look at the architecture by Kengo Kuma and we see what's here in the background, we see here progress now, an emancipation. This is a serious architecture, a sensitive architecture, as opposed to less inspired architecture, if we are to call it so. He also, it's obvious he's concerned with light, because the quality of light here is to be appreciated. And he obtains this because of those elements which kind of look strange from the outside. This, but because of this pointillistic architecture, I could call it, he obtained this you know, filtered light, which is poetical in nature and nice because it's more sensitive. But towards the outside, it can be a little bit tiring. These little things that emerge from the elevation, you know, they are small and thus they are not very aggressive, but still it's something obsessional a little bit about them. On the other hand, you know, you look at the plan, it's all based on triangles mostly. But then if you look at the sections, the triangles disappear. I mean, the spaces within, they are not triangular in any way. The roofs have, you know, triangulations, but there is a different spirit in the vertical sections than in the plans. If you look at this plan, you don't really expect this section. And you don't expect this kind of, drawing. But I like the fact that he fragments the building, that is not a monolith, is not a monolithical, entity. He is fond of multiplicity, and I think this is a quality. Another museum in China. Here again, he uses this architectural curtain or second facade, you know, like a mask, like a veil, and the veil is done rather cerebrally, rationally, because he uses that module, and with it he creates this field through which he filters light. But the effect, particularly inside, is positive, I think. And even towards the outside, is this fragmentation which dilutes a little bit the possible heaviness of the architecture if he didn't have it. You could say that this second layer is some kind of a feminization of the building, and I think we need more of it, not less. I think there are positive aspects related to this feminization of architecture through the act of weaving. And what does he weave? It's are these elements that he assembles outside, and they are obviously of a decorative character. They're ornamental, and the ornament can be done in many ways. It's like a curtain, but which is placed outside of the building, not inside. Maybe at times it could be a little bit tiring. I have a feeling there is a little bit of he's close sometimes to being a little bit neurotical, I think, in his choices. But I don't know. I never experienced a building by him in person, so maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But this repetition, this field, you know, which sometimes is of large dimensions, created with this pattern, because it's a pattern with that entity, that piece repeating ad infinitum. Maybe it can be a little bit tiring. Work in France now, City of Arts and City of Music in Besançon in France. Here he uses it again, you know. It's um, I guess we cannot distance ourselves for too long and too much from our obsessions. um, He does it on the ceiling, on the roof, he does it on the walls, he does it everywhere. Wood, wood, and wood again. Let's cut down the forest once and for all. No, I'm wrong. Let's keep the forest for Kengo Kuma. He needs that wood badly. Without that wood, he cannot breathe. I will be honest, and I already was. I don't think this is really the way to go, you know, to show our love of nature by cutting it down. On the other hand, how can we continue to build? We have to build up something. It's true, it's a dilemma. Could we continue to build while also being very concerned about sustainability? Maybe who said the best way to be sustainable is to not build at all. But then, can the human being do this? Can the architect do this? Abstain from building? Can the architect today say, like Leon Krier, I am an architect, therefore I do not build? Well, then even Leon Krier couldn't abstain from building and build some terrible buildings, like his own house in Florida. So there, you know, indeed, Luigi Prestinenza was perhaps right. Architects say one thing and they do another thing. So, you know, if we contemplate this building, we can very well ask this question. What is preferable? To have instead of this building a fragment of a forest uncut, or to have the forest cut in order to have this building? I'm not so sure that this shows a particular love of nature. I'm not so sure he is actually staying away from dominating nature. Because if you stay away from dominating nature, you stop cutting down trees in order to make your, you know, systems of diffusing light or whatever. But that's the problem. The human being cannot stop. We cannot stop. We build buildings bigger and bigger. And because, yes, we get tired of concrete, here we are. We still have some forests in the world. Let's cut them down. And let's invite the famous Japanese architect to show his sensitivity in handling the cut down trees. In essence, it's still a big building celebrating anthropos, meaning the human being which is on the verge of ruining the world. I wrote to someone today in Bucharest, there are only three seasons now, not four. Winter is gone. We don't have winter any longer. Last year, there was no winter. 2 years ago, there was no winter. And today, there were 10 degrees Celsius in Bucharest at the end of December, at the beginning of January. These are not normal temperatures for winter. And we cut down trees. Kengo Kuma's first building in Australia. Let's look at it. Well, it's not so original. We had seen such things by other architects, you know. But why not? I mean, it could be this way or it could be some other way. And people who enjoy life and they have the money to enjoy life sit at a table and chat and, you know, maybe enjoy, you know, this tree which is not yet cut down. And this is just a rendering. Now, Rolex, of course, Dallas Sales and Service Center for Rolex. Now, the king of watches. And does look like the building for a king, doesn't it? You know, it's the same old story. You know, those in power that they are named Rolex or they are named something else, they build these buildings all over the world, not just in Dallas, for those who can afford a Rolex watch. No. So here comes the famous architect and you know, takes at his disposal a percentage of a forest or something else and builds and builds and builds. And now we arrive at the Kengo Kuma's Tokyo 2020 Olympic Stadium, which when I made this presentation, the construction just began, but he built it. And as I said, there was a big litigation process against him. Zaha Hadid architects sued him because apparently he inspired himself from the winning entry of Zaha Hadid, but he was commissioned by the Japanese government, and this is really shameful, I would say. Zaha Hadid won the competition. She couldn't build the building because it was given the commission to Kengo Kuma. Kengo Kuma, somebody wrote that it did a good work because it's a building without the heroic architecture of, let's say, Kenzo Tange, who for the Olympics of, I don't know, 1964 or something, built two beautiful stadiums, truly beautiful, much more creative than what Kengo Kuma did here. But then he lived at a different time. In the 60s, Japan was expressing its desire to emancipate itself, to show its vigor, its force, its exploding economy. While now we are more melancholy and but we still entertain dreams of some kind of peace in the world by employing the generous material wood is offering us abundantly. In essence, it's still a huge stadium, as we can see, but done with less ambition or less sincerity, to show that in its essence is still a provocation to nature, to the earth, and it's still advocating the cause of mega events, because it's about a mega event. Otherwise, this stadium is not so creative. I am sorry, Kengo Kuma. I actually don't know in what way you inspired yourself from the work by Zaha Hadid. The project by Zaha Hadid was much more creative than what I see here. Anyway, you can see pictures with the building already built on Google Images. I'm not impressed by this building. Yes, he put all that vegetation there, because we live in a green age, so to speak. So he's the man of the time, he's not distancing himself from the ethos of our time, but in essence, he's still a mega building for a mega society that loves mega entertainment. Everything is mega. And here he is. Didn't I mention that? I mean, maybe I was not so wrong. What do we see? 5 men and a strange architect. That's what I said, but maybe my taste is colored by my own experiences. But I think that leather jacket looks like he purchased it from the Salvation Army or a second-hand store. But these men, these 5 men, these 5 Japanese men, and I have the highest respect for Japan and for the Japanese people. But they sabotage Zaha Hadid, even if she won the competition, and I don't think that was right. If I was in the place of Kengo Kuma, I would have declined to receive the commission, and I would have insisted Zaha should build her building. She won the competition, gentlemen. Anyway, whatever the discussion, I still think his leather jacket is rather strange. And here too, I don't know. I don't know. I like his works. I feel he has maybe some important things to say, but I will be very honest with you. Something turns me off about this man. For some reason, I don't trust him. Maybe because I have that, I cannot forget what he did in 1992. Please take a look at that building. If I don't have it here, it's unbelievable. With a huge so-called classical column. Well, it's true there was postmodernism then, but to do something like this in Tokyo for a showroom for a car is the insult of insults to the history of architecture and even to the car manufacturers themselves. It's something about, I mean, even now, this picture saddened me. You know, I look at the man on the left and I look at the man, at the architect, and I see something almost fishy here. You know, it's anyway, they built it. Kengo Kuma Sunny Hills, wood, wood, and wood again. Really, look at this. This is the Starbucks cafe. Yes, it looks interesting from the outside, doesn't it? It does. But if you remove the skin, what do you get? Nothing. It's the skin that makes it interesting, but with what price? Is it really so unavoidable to cut down trees for such effects? It happens that I like this building. I like the way it looks. But when we have only 3 seasons and winter is gone, and we know pollution is taking over us dramatically, Bucharest is one of the most polluted cities in Europe. We need the earth, we need the trees, we need oxygen, we need the forests, and we cut them down in order to have Kengo Kuma, do his obsessional architecture. Yes, it is interesting, and I like it, but I also dislike it because of the reasons I mentioned. And I think the thoughts and the words of Louis Kahn apply here too, because Louis Kahn, when he was asked about what he thought about the New York Five, those celebrated, architects from New York, Richard Meyer, Peter Eisenman, Michael Graves, Charles Whitney, and John Haydock. And Louis Kahn said they are Playboy architects. And he said, I prefer to do what is right in the wrong way than to do what is wrong in the right way. And I think this is what Kengo Kuma does. He does what is wrong in the right way. This building and other buildings by him are done well. They are convincing aesthetically. But somehow he does the wrong way, the wrong buildings, because he does them in the right way, but he does the wrong things because of this excessive relying on wood for ornamental purposes. I'm not against ornaments, as you know. I'm not against wood, but I think it is wrong at this time to continue to use so much wood when actually we could abstain from doing it. And for God's sake, it's a Starbucks cafe, you know. Do we need more Starbucks cafes in the world, really? We can drink coffee at home, or can't we have a coffee shop in any kind of building? Again, when I look at this, I ask myself, what does the forest think about this work? What do the trees think? Especially those trees that were cut down and the others which are going to be cut down for similar purposes. But we don't talk with trees, right? We think they are soulless. Why should we feel guilty about the poor trees? Because they don't feel anything. We think. And I have to tell you something very strange. I was for 2 years a so-called artist in residence at an experimental school in the United States, at the Ross School in East Hampton, New York. And there was also a contemplative in residence, a Tibetan monk. And we talked about trees. And for me, a tree has a soul. That's what in my primitivism I feel and think. And I asked him, how is it in the Tibetan Buddhism? And he said, no, trees don't have a soul. But it's hard for me to believe, actually, because Buddha received his enlightenment, arrived at his enlightenment at the famous tree. And I don't know. I don't know. But again, when I look at this thing, yes, it's interesting. But when I think, first, it's a Starbucks cafe. Second, it's a mask. No, behind it, it's a commercial structure. which should tell the truth about itself and not mimic that is some kind of a mysterious chapel or anything. Maybe I'm too critical. Maybe I'm in a bad mood. But yes, I like what I see. I like the labyrinth. I like this complication of matters. I like it. But I would have liked even more the trees to be left in peace. And he didn't. And he didn't. And you can still see the Cartesian man behind this image because it's a grid, it's a cube. It has the cubical mentality behind it. And then he distorts, but he still uses the fragmentation, this, if I'm to refer to my malicious friend matches. Too much wood. Sorry, Mr. Kengo Kuma. Please abstain from using so much tree. So much tree, yes. But the paradox is that this man claims that he loves nature, respects nature. In what way? By cutting it down? And here are his games. He's good at it, it's true. Variations of wood joints. And it moves automatically. I don't even click on anything. Now, if there were more Kengo Kumas in the world, we would have no forests in the world. It would be completely deforested, the world. So the irresponsible kid Kengo Kuma could make sticks and play with those sticks ad infinitum. Okay, Mr. Kuma, we saw it. We saw your system. We saw it. I wonder what a good psychoanalyst might think about it. A good psychoanalyst, especially of a Freudian kind, would find some kind of a Freudian problem here, maybe of an erotical nature, some kind of erotical trouble or frustration that this particular architect seems to have. I mean, I could elaborate a little bit, but maybe it's not now the time. I'm reminded a little bit of reading some psychoanalytical texts where the collectors were considered anal personalities. And I have a feeling that Kengo Kuma seems to have a problem of that kind somehow. But I'm not sufficiently prepared in psychoanalysis to elaborate or to go further in this. But it's some kind of a obsession here with these pieces of wood, which, of course, the goddess of Starbucks is right there for all to see. Anyway, I mean, it's interesting, yes, but I would have preferred the ozone or the oxygen to emerge from the trees, not from the Starbucks neurotical structures of Kengo Kuma. Neurotical but geometrical at the same time. Let us tell the truth. It's really the mask that matters. Everything that is behind the mask is not so interesting. It's the mask. And now this is a hut. A hut, maybe not the smallest in the world, but let's see. A hut. Sure, why not? I mean, although when I look at all that glass, I wonder, you know. I mean, the price of energy went up to the sky recently, and all that glass means you need to compensate the losses of energy. Yes, we don't quite have any longer strong winters or not at all. But in the summer, that glass means you melt down there, and in the winter, if the winter comes back, you might need additional sweaters. Wood again, of course. Yeah, I guess, you know, it's another building. It could be done this way or some other way. Now, main building, another museum. This man builds a lot of museums. It's okay, no? It's interesting. He's good at manipulating geometry, or someone in his office. Um, sure, does this, you know, astute geometry express the, you know, the courage, the assertiveness of art? Perhaps, but maybe a little bit too emphatically and too, yeah, too much as a certitude, maybe. I don't know. But he's obviously concerned also with instability, and instability generates dynamic qualities. So the dynamism of some of his buildings derives probably in part from this instability that sometimes he is able to evoke or create through manipulating geometry in conflicting ways, fragmentation, and so on, like we see here. But as long as he doesn't use wood, I'm more willing to accept his work. But it wasn't for too long. After all, we are still talking about Kengo Kuma, no? So here it is again. Here comes Kengo Kuma again. Wood, wood, and wood again. I'm almost sure that the trees are frightened of this man. You know, they probably talk the trees to each other. You know, be careful. If this man is approaching us, be very careful. Our life will end soon. This man is unforgiving. He claims he loves us, but as other people do, people with problems, you know, they hate what they love, and vice versa, maybe. That's why, you know, maybe a Freudian professor might be necessary to put Mr. Kengo Kuma on the couch and ask him a few questions and allow him to confess. Wins design competition for the new Paris metro station sign. Big metro station, of course. Kengo Kuma anchors an earthquake resistant building with carbon fiber threads. Let's read again. Kengo Kuma anchors an earthquake resistant building with carbon fiber threads. Why does he do so? Again, he relies a lot on these curtains, on these masks, on these veils, which make all of a sudden but I don't know what their role is. Is the building earthquake resistant because of these threads? And they are carbon fiber threads. I don't know. But remove the curtain and you get one of the most banal buildings ever seen. It's strange, no? I mean, really, if you remove these threads, what do you get? A building not worth mentioning or looking at. But even with the threads, you can still see the banality of the building behind. The lightweight carbon fiber composites can also be found in the interior, which feature white draped fabrics that mimic the sculptural facade. I mean, really, you call this a sculptural facade? I mean, I think it's a compliment I'm not sure it deserves. It's like, covering the most banal building in the world with a curtain and say it's sculptural. It's not sculptural. I'm sorry. I don't know who wrote this text. It wasn't me. And here again, this melodrama of these, fiber threads, trying to make out of a banal situation something more interesting. But I don't know if it's because of these threads that not this building, which is not threatened in any way by an earthquake, but the bigger one. And inside is horrid. I'm really sorry. I mean, if I was in the jury of the Pritzker Prize, based on this work and the one from 1992, which if I was in a bad mood, I would have advised, if I was, of course, in the position to do so, I would have advised the specific authority in Japan to remove the right for building from this architect at least for 25 years. But this work also is pathetic. It's again the curtain here literally. He covers banal walls with this curtain here literally. I mean, what is this affectation in front of the elevator? What is this, and what are these things on the top? It's just, sorry for being totally unacademic and uncritical and unobjective, but it makes me sick. Zigzag roof to Wada City Plaza, and zigzagging it is indeed, but otherwise, I don't know. It is zigzagging, yes, a little bit on the roof. Wood again. I mean, again, a lot of wood. This man creates hills and valleys made of wood inside a big space. I'm so sorry for these cut down trees. I really am. I will mount them. Tonight, after I finish my presentation, I'll probably open a candle, which I don't have, unfortunately, and pray for the trees which are not yet cut down, but they might. In the name of this obsessive neurotical architecture by this Japanese architect who has talent, who has interesting things to say, but who cannot stop from cutting down trees. And I don't understand. Look, this doesn't have a lot of trees. Yes, it's not so interesting, but that's him actually at bottom. Next to Igreo College of Environmental Design, University of California at Berkeley. What are we looking at now? Please tell me. Wood, and wood again. And then there are some other strange things, not interesting, that, I mean, look here. Look, really, Mr. Kengo Kuma, please stop. Please stop cutting down trees, please. I'm really very sorry for all this wood. I'm sorry for something else. I hope I have here pictures, because this is a building. Let's read again. Environmental design, right? The College of Environmental Design, based on cutting down a good number of trees, because you cannot obtain this obsessional Cartesian grid all made of wood without cutting down trees. But you'll see very soon something else. So again, this is about environmental design, right? Okay, here we are. This is not Starbucks. This is the College of Environmental Design at a famous university, Berkeley, US. Wood, and wood again. But you'll see something else. Wood again, wood again, and the grid, and the cube, and the Cartesian mentality, and the metallic elements that so-called join them. Let's not forget, this man is Japanese. In Japan, in traditional Japanese society, history and architecture in traditional Japanese architecture, the great masters who truly loved wood, it's true, they used wood too, but in the past there was more wood in the world than now. Not that I'm trying to excuse them, but at least they didn't use nails. They tried to create joints without the need for any kind of, metallic intrusions, which violate the wood, and which he uses here, just like Peter Zumthor uses them when he, in some of his works, I mean, that work in Norway where he even broke into stone to connect his black little pavilions and structures using these, giant human, so-called joining entities, but they are not joining. They are based on raping the wood, raping the stone in the case of Peter Zumthor. Nest we grow. Look at this. Now, this is not because of Kengo Kuma. But look at this fish here. Hanged from the top. Look at these carrots hanged from the top. And this building is supposed to serve environmental science. It's an environmental college. It's supposed to pay attention and to nature, to advocate affection for nature, knowledge for nature, a relationship with nature in friendly terms. And what do we see here? Assassinated big fish, assassinated carrots, strangled. These are strangled and these are hanged. It's unbelievable cruelty. It's unbelievable. Look at this. Really, I mean, it's hard for me not to be apocalyptic in my visions when I contemplate. Look at the face of this, at the head of this fish. Again, this is probably not had nothing to do with Kengo Kuma. This is about what this college of so-called environmental design or environmental whatever chose to, or who knows, maybe the architect was employed too, for assassinating fish in order to create some kind of sculptures, no? Because anthropos cannot live without art. We think that this is art. Unacceptable. As unacceptable is this treatment of wood here with these pieces of steel. This is not love for nature. I'm sorry. This is not love for nature. And we'll pay the price sooner or later for our arrogance and lack of sensitivity. Look. And the happy-go-lucky students. Everybody is laughing, happy. They feel no remorse for that fish, no remorse for that wood, no remorse for the carrots. They laugh. Kaya noia shop, wood and wood again, shop for the pleasure of anthropos. I'm scared. I am telling you, I am scared. The human being went too far in exploiting the earth and cannot stop. Another shop. Kengo Kuma sets wind eaves pavilion in the grounds of a Taiwanese hotel. Sure. Nice pavilion, nice structure. But we have seen plenty of nice pavilions, nice structures. So what? So what? I still love more the trees that are alive behind. Sorry, Mr. Kengo Kuma. Truly, I like more the trees that are not geometrized behind your pavilion, so-called brilliant pavilion. No, I love architecture, but I love even more those trees behind, which look probably astonished at our ignorance. Again, man as the measure of all things. Yes, you look at the trees and you look at the pavilion and you realize that the fact this man is celebrating a human being already over celebrated, and we need less of that celebration. Doesn't matter how brilliant and how well manipulating geometry or whatever. Yes, 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 sure. Yeah, very ingenious. Yeah, so what? So what? It's a little game in wood. So what? So what? And then you come with plastic on top because I don't know why. Yeah, you do so. Okay. Completes angular Riyama Cultural Hall in central Japan. Okay. Another building. Or you can build any building these days, any kind of building, even buildings that float in the air without any foundation, without respecting any gravity. We can do it, sure. We have the technology, but I'm not impressed. Okay, it's another building, approximately skillfully done. So what? There are plenty of such buildings in the world. Okay, he played a little bit with the surfaces, with his beloved triangles, but I still have more of the trees behind, which in their silence look astonished at the work of man. And they probably wonder, when will they stop? When? And they will not stop. Beings will not stop. Again, we look at a lot of wood here, no? Wood, wood, wood. And here are the victims, the silent victims. The wood probably came from somewhere here, maybe, or some other place. But your pavilion, Paris, wood again. And really, this man begins to irritate me. So what does he want to say with this, amalgamation of pieces of wood? Well, what does he want to say? That the work of God is inferior to the work of man? That's what he tried to say? Well, if God wanted to make the forest or the trees in this way, he would have done so. But he chose this. But here comes Kengo Kuma and does something else, so-called interesting installation or sculpture or whatever. Look, give me a break, Mr. Kengo Kuma, please. Please, I can't take it any longer. It's too much wood. Renovates art gallery in China with sculptural extension. Here is not wood, or maybe it is, but no, 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 no. I probably should find a Freudian psychoanalyst to talk a little bit about Kengo Kuma. I look at this. I mean, these pieces make you sick too. It's something about them that I can't trust this architect. I'm sorry. I like the idea of veil in architecture very much. I like the idea to have a more sensitive interior through filtering light. But when I look at this piece here, it's sickly sweet. It's I don't know what it is about it. And I'm not against ornament, as it is well known. No, no. I mean, when I look at the ornaments of Louis Sullivan, I see something very different. I'm sorry. There is some sort of sickness, really. Shaanxi boutique, a boutique in Shanghai, features triaxially folded canopy. I don't know. I don't know. It's like when you have a delicious birthday cake, but because it's too big and too pink, after a while you get sick of it. That's what I feel vis-a-vis the work of Kengo Kuma. It's like my stomach suffers because of this giant pink birthday cake. I mean, look at this. No, Museum of Knowledge, Indigenous Knowledge, cave-shaped and plant-covered museum by Kengo Kuma is dedicated to Filipino history. Really, I laugh, but I should cry. I mean, you know, the end of the Anthropocene era is close at hand, really. I think it is. Otherwise, I designed myself a so-called Museum of Knowledge, but in Chandigarh, which in a way is not, it has some connection with what he tried to do here. But I mean, it is interesting, it's true, but it's also sickening somehow. I don't know if I can say something more intelligent than this, and I know it was not intelligent, but I'm not inspired now. I don't know what to think. Yes, the cave is showing up, and you know, then you have seductive silhouettes like this lady in the foreground on the right, you know, and it's a rendering. He won the competition maybe, but it was not built. An artificial ravine will carve through the center of Kengo Kuma's Museum of Indigenous Knowledge in the Philippines, which is shaped like a hollowed out lump of rock. And what is that escalator doing there, you know? Mixed use skyscraper in Vancouver. Well, isn't this a deja vu? Well, didn't Bjarke Ingels and his big group build already a building very similar like this, erode it on one side? Well, here comes also in Vancouver. This man inspires himself. He inspires himself from various trends and various artists and architects. Zaha Hadid, Bjarke Ingels, Arakawa, and now or Kawamata, mixed-use skyscraper in Vancouver. It's almost identical with what Bjarke Ingels did. Some changes in the facades, but the essential architectonic erosion is done very similarly to what Big did, also in Vancouver. I don't know how he has the nerve to do this and how he gets away with it. He does. It's a little bit more neurotical than Bjarke Ingels, but anyway, Bjarke Ingels built it before. I mean, this is just a project. He didn't yet start building it, but he might. I'm beginning to be tired of architecture. I love architecture, but Kengo Kuma makes me tired of architecture. Cars, cars, and cars again. We will question everything. We are ready to question everything except its majesty, the car, and the highway and the parking lot. There, it's the divine trinity: the car, the highway, and the parking lot. And then romantic silhouettes, you know, beautiful kid there with a beautiful music hat, you know, the husband is at work and the wife with the kid taking a walk in the beautiful environment designed by Kengo Kuma with another cut down forest here, as you can see.